What qualifies you from your life experience to run the largest city in the country?
Zohran Mamdani appeared on Fox News a few months ago, back when he was still running for mayor of New York and just weeks away from the election. He was interviewed by Fox News anchor Martha McCallum, who, like many Fox hosts, approached the conversation with clear skepticism and repeatedly pressed him using familiar right-wing talking points. But as in his other interviews, Zohran came prepared, answered every question directly, and avoided every gotcha moment the interviewer seemed to be aiming for. In the first question, she asked what makes him qualified to be mayor and run the largest city in the country. Many critics claim Zohran isn't qualified, arguing that he's never had a real job and is simply an influencer. But watch how Zohran delivers a clear, confident response that completely dismantles that framing.
What qualifies you from your life experience to run the largest city in the country?
You know, I want to take this moment because you spoke about President Trump, and he may be watching right now, and I just want to speak directly to the president, which is that I will not be a mayor like Mayor Adams who will call you to figure out how to stay out of jail. I won't be a disgraced governor like Andrew Cuomo who will call you to ask how to win this election. I can do those things on my own. I will, however, be a mayor who is ready to speak at any time to lower the cost of living. That's the way that I'm going to lead this city. That's the partnership I want to build, not only with Washington, D.C., but anyone across this country. I think it's important because too often the focus on the needs of working-class Americans, working-class New Yorkers are put to the side as we talk more and more about the very kinds of corrupt politicians like Andrew Cuomo that delivered us into this kind of crisis.
So the question I asked you was what specifically in your background gives you the confidence that you can run a $115 billion budget and run this city specifically from your personal experience and your background?
I've been a state assembly member here in New York City. I've represented 130,000 people in Queens. And in the time that I've done so, I've not only delivered more than $100 million in increased bus and subway service, I've also secured $500 million in debt relief for working class taxi drivers. President Trump knows this. New Yorkers know this across the 5 boroughs. Taxis, as we're looking at them right here, are such a part of what we love about this city. And yet those same drivers were sold a lie about a ticket to the middle class if they bought a medallion. I stood with those drivers. I organized with those drivers. I went on a 15-day hunger strike with those drivers. And we secured $500 million in debt relief that allows those drivers to do more than just think about struggle.
In the next segment, she presses him on whether he will give President Trump credit for the ceasefire between Israel and Palestine, repeatedly returning to the question. While a ceasefire could have been a positive step, it loses its meaning when it's violated multiple times by Israel. Zohran points this out directly in his response and explains why he refuses to offer full praise under those circumstances.
If you are asked tomorrow night if you give credit to President Trump for the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and the return of the 20 living hostages, would you raise your hand?
When it comes to the ceasefire, I am thankful and I have hope that it will actually endure and that it will be lasting. And I continue to have concerns because I've seen reports still, just this in the last few days, that 5 Palestinians were killed by the Israeli military. And that's what gives me pause about issuing any kind of praise or celebration at a moment when it is still so in its infancy. And what I will tell you is that in that same moment, it is also one that requires a focus on ensuring that that hope, that belief in a better future is one that is emblematic in our policies right here in New York City as well. And that's what we're hoping to lead with.
So would you give President Trump credit or not, to any extent? Credit or not?
I think it's too early to do so.
Too early to say.
But if it proves to be something that is lasting, something that is durable, then I think that that's where you give credit.
With Israel already brought up, she pivots once again to another question about Israel and Hamas, rather than focusing on New York or the concerns of American citizens. But this is typical of corporate media, especially Fox News, which often prioritizes the interests of foreign nations over the everyday issues facing Americans. In this clip, she accuses Zohran of failing to condemn October 7th and deliberately leaving it out of the conversation. Zohran responds directly, offering one of his strongest and most clear-cut answers yet.
You've denounced Israel and the United States for the response to the slaughter on October the 7th. In fact, at times you've called it a lasting stain, the response, and at times you have left October 7th out of your statements completely around this issue. Right now, you just talked about Israelis killing some Palestinians, but Hamas is killing Palestinians within Gaza. And they have not returned the bodies that they promised to return, including 2 Americans, Itai Chen and Omer Nutra, whose families we have interviewed over these months. So what is your response to what Hamas is doing now?
I think those are bodies and remains that should absolutely be returned. And I think that I have no issue with critiquing Hamas or the Israeli government, because my critiques all come from a place of universal human rights. And my focus, however, is right here in New York City and transforming the most expensive city in America into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker.
But, okay.
Notice how the host struggles to maintain her framing when Zohran redirects the conversation back to New York and the real concerns of American citizens.
I want to get to that, absolutely. But do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety and the fact that anything has to abide by international law. And that applies to Hamas, that applies to the Israeli military, applies to anyone you could ask me about.
Okay. One last thought on that. You have said that you would arrest Netanyahu if he came to the United States. You've been very outspoken in your criticism of him.
Now we come to the so-called million-dollar question. She asked whether Zohran would arrest Netanyahu, who has been accused of war crimes and is the subject of arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court. What's truly shocking is that this is treated as controversial, despite Netanyahu being criticized by many pro-Israel politicians and even Israeli citizens who believe he has committed war crimes. As always, Zohran delivers a thoughtful and composed response to the question.
You have said that you would arrest Netanyahu if he came to the United States. You've been very outspoken in your criticism of him. Do you stand by that? You would arrest him if he came here if you were mayor?
I've said that this is a city that believes in international law, and this is a city that wants to uplift and uphold those beliefs. The Prime Minister...
The United States doesn't stand by the International Criminal Court.
It hasn't signed the treaty for the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court, however, has issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu.
But what grounds in the United States could you arrest him on?
As it has for Vladimir Putin. I've said that I believe that we should uphold arrest warrants by the International Criminal Court, and that we should do so only in abiding with all of the laws in front of us. I'm not going to make a new law to ensure that we can actually do this. Do you think that Commissioner
Tisch would allow you to arrest Netanyahu in New York City?
I've appreciated Commissioner Tisch's leadership of the NYPD, and I think that she's done a good job at lowering crime across the city.
So a lot of individuals in this city pay more than 50%.
She then turns to the issue of fair share and taxing the rich. Zohran has proposed a modest policy, an additional 2% tax on New Yorkers earning over $1 million a year, an amount that would barely affect them, but could meaningfully improve the quality of life for working-class New Yorkers and the city as a whole. Unsurprisingly, corporate media isn't fond of this idea. They're far more comfortable protecting the interests of the wealthy than addressing the needs of working people. The host presses Zohran on this, clearly hoping for a gotcha moment. But once again, Zohran shuts it down with a sharp, well-prepared response.
So a lot of individuals in this city pay more than 50% of their income in taxes. When you talk about a fair share, how much more than, what is the fair share? What's the number?
I've said that we should increase personal income taxes by 2%.
Is fair?
And my point is this.
Give up more than half of your income. That's
if you're making $1 million in New York City, or more than that, you can afford to pay 2% more. And the reasons you can afford to do so is because that money will be used to better your quality of life as well.
Yeah.
Because when I speak to the wealthiest New Yorkers, I hear concerns about the cleanliness of the city, the quality of life in the city, questions of public safety. This money is the money that will be used to deliver on those things so that we can ensure that we have a return on investment for all of the money that we are raising and spending right here across the 5 boroughs.
Throughout the interview, the framing stayed the same, but Zohran's responses never changed. Calm, direct, and focused on real issues affecting New Yorkers. No matter the angle, he stayed in control of the conversation. Subscribe for more videos like this.